Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. Recently, I was watching a YouTube video clip from the John Oliver HBO series Last Week Tonight, talking about native advertising, which is to its very core a very frightening prospect, in my humble opinion. Which, if you frequent sort of online media outlets and news media sites and stuff like that, is probably something you've encountered before, but can basically be described as advertisements, commercials that are, sort of camouflaged to look like they're editorials and news articles and actual reported truth, that kind of thing. And it really revolves around the old argument of the separation of church and state, which I'm all for, of course. But the thing that's very frightening about it, as Oliver talks about, is that these big movers and shakers in the news media, especially the print media, but all of these outlets have also a digital side of things, an online side of things, are very much becoming accepting to that whole sort of business aesthetic, this, native advertising model, where they're putting essentially commercials out there as though they are legitimate articles and editorials. And that's very frightening when you consider the statistics, as Oliver points out. More often than not, people are not being able to differentiate between the two, the actual reported news and the advertisements. And I feel like it's troublesome and meddlesome, something that, we've seen in the news media outlets on TV and such like that. The Fox Newses and the MSNBCs, CNN, they all have a sort of aesthetic, a business model to the news they report, and a sort of political stance or a religious sort of stance or what have you. The objectivity is becoming a thing of the past where it pertains to these big news media conglomerates, it seems like, these days. And that's just horrifying to me, because you're seeing, not a full disclosure of the actual cruel truth that is out there and everything like that on all of these things. And they're all done with this slant, an opinionated slant that can be very disservicing to the viewers and stuff, especially those easily led, the masses, if you will. And it's kind of prolonging that level of ignorance for people who don't think, sort of with forethought to ask questions and question what they're being fed. And when they can't differentiate between advertisements versus the actual news that's being reported, it's just going to make that that much harder to sift through, that kind of thing. And I think it signifies, in my mind at least, that the future is really going to be in the independent reporter. That is, individuals who, like myself, through the digital social mediums of YouTube and Facebook and all these other kind of sites, their own websites perchance, are going to be, sort of reporting the news personally, that kind of thing. I think that's what we're going to see as the, Edward R. Murrows of the future when it comes to news and news media. Where we're going to see as unbiased an opinion as we can. Of course, the individual is always going to have their own bias toward a story one way or another, and I think there's a fine line that we walk collectively between the editorial and the objective reporting of things. You can only go so far without letting your own thoughts and, opinions basically affect a story, that kind of stuff. But I think it's a very troublesome and frightening thing that also leads way to a ray of hope in the idea that the individual may be who is going to be reporting in the future. And I think we already see some of that going on the internet and stuff like that. When you talk about Gaza and Egypt and people putting up videos on YouTube that leads their entire government to cut them down, there's another worry about the future for the independent reporter who, if they say something against their government, will their government clamp down on them and that kind of stuff. And I just really want to commend John Oliver for putting this bug into my thinking, and want to share his video. You can find that linked in the description below. As well as, I just want to say this video is not brought to us by Mountain Dew Code Red, but Oliver, I have to disagree. This stuff is the shit.